All right, this is John LeBon on the 20th of March, 2016, and this is Impromptu Chat number 6. We've had a few technical issues, so hopefully on this, the third and final attempt, it'll be okay. I've got with me a very special guest for the Impromptu Chats, making his first appearance on this line of broadcasting. My old buddy from down there in Melbourne, Eccentric Views, aka Gino. Gino, thank you for taking the time.
It's an honor, thank you.
Oh, that's the way. And am I coming through loud and clear? No glitches this time around?
Nah, it's all good now.
Good. I think I found the source of the problem. We were having streaming issues before, and I think it was because somebody else in the house was downloading a movie, would you believe? And the internet in some parts of Australia is still pretty antiquated in some ways. So I think we've got it sorted. Enough about all of that. Let's get right into the show. And there's a few things that you and I were chatting about on Skype recently, including earlier tonight. And hopefully we get time to talk about these things tonight, Gino. Firstly, give you a chance to remind viewers who've already heard of you before and explain to those who are not familiar with you who you are, what you do, how it is that you and I came to be discussing things on YouTube in the first place. Also, maybe just quickly touch on a topic that you and I have talked about a few times in previous videos, namely this flat earth scene on YouTube, which some people call a cult, some people call it a psyop. Other people are more optimistic. They call it a movement of peace and hope and all kinds of things. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Speaking of hope and peace and all kinds of nonsense, Donald Trump is in the news, Gino. I know that you're following this one really closely. I don't tend to follow the circuses that much anymore, but we can talk a little bit about that. Craters on the Earth. Where do craters come from, if not from meteors, or do they come from meteors? We'll chat about that. And also, if we get time, it is late down there in Melbourne, but if we get time, we'll talk about some questions that have to do with what is on the other side. All sound good to you, Gina?
Yes, it does, yes.
Yeah. So without further ado, why don't you kick it off and let the listeners know just a basic idea of who you are, what you do, what your mission on YouTube is, if you like. Take it away.
Well, I'll start off by just quickly mentioning how we met, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
I might have already done this before, but anyway. It was actually my atheism that brought me to John. I'm no longer, I wouldn't say an atheist anymore after this whole flat earth thing last year. But yeah, many years ago, I was really into the whole Richard Dawkins, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, Bill Nye, that whole group. I was really into evolution and Big Bang, science, all that sort of stuff. There was a YouTuber called The Amazing Atheist. You guys might have heard of him. He's pretty big on the YouTube scene. I was following him a little bit, and he reported on the old Elliot Rodger, 22-year-old virgin guy who went on a rampage killing people because he couldn't get laid. The reason why The Amazing Atheist thought it was relevant to his channel is because in his manifesto, he mentioned that he felt godlike and I was a god and blah, 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 blah. So therefore, he thought it was relevant to his channel. We've since realized that obviously, that manifesto probably wasn't even written by Elliot Rodger, but whatever. At first, I was right into it. I thought that this is interesting, because I was once I'm 34 now, but I was once a struggling young man around that time, trying to get girls, and I sort of felt the guy's pain in some way. I thought, oh, this is really intriguing. I never wanted to kill people though, and it wasn't until good old Jeff C and Red Pill he was called at the time, and a few others, Red Silver J, is how I discovered these guys. They all made videos, showing the evidence of it being a hoax, and I was like right into it. It convinced me, and started listening to Jeff C's podcast, and then my good old pal John was on one of them. I started hearing this lovely, soothing, sexy-sounding Aussie voice. I thought, oh, here we go, he's one of our boys. So so I discovered John that way, and then I discovered he had his own podcast, and then I really started liking some of the things he said. And that's how I met him. And then he came down to Melbourne one time and met him. And then I came up to Gold Coast to visit family and friends. And he came down and joined me. So we've hung out outside of YouTube a couple of times, which is great. But yeah, with this whole scene, you know, I'm only doing this just to, you know, get some stuff off my chest, because I really don't think any of this is going to make much of a change in the world. Sorry to sound pessimistic, but that's probably the truth there. I'm just someone that works in a call center, so I don't really claim to be the most knowledgeable, you know, smart guy out there. I think John's a lot more smarter than I am, so I'll be asking him a lot of questions tonight. Actually, I want to pick his brain. I do have some interesting questions tonight I want to raise. And John, you did say that I've been following the Trump thing closely, which that's incorrect. I haven't. I've sort of been glancing at it. I do find it very intriguing as to what the fuck is going on over there. And so that is a topic I certainly wouldn't mind discussing with you, perhaps. Yeah, some of these questions I've posted, John, in our Skype chats. Where do creators come from? What happens after death? Et cetera, et cetera. So that's about it. I'll throw it back over to you, John.
Yeah, that's a pretty good introduction. And that's the second time we've had to run through that in about 20 minutes. So thank you for your patience there. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been following the same scene for over a year, almost 2 years now. And we both met, I guess, through that scene. That was the whole hoax busting community that was led by the great selfless leader back in the day, back when it existed, the hoax busting community. And it seems silly now to waste countless hours breaking down the latest shooting hoax, but it wasn't so long ago, Gino. That was a pretty big thing. And you did used to watch a lot of those shows like We'll Do It Live, etc., didn't you?
I didn't watch We'll Do It Live that much. Just maybe a few times I did. But yeah, the shooting hoaxes I found them fascinating. 2014, because they appeared to be, hoaxed or staged, and it was very interesting. The reason for them being staged or hoaxed is different theories. That's a whole other, subject. Whether or not they are or not is what I'm really intrigued about. If they are, then I was fascinated with it all. But then you look at other bigger event or false flag or hoaxes, what do you want to call them, and they kind of seem a little bit tame now. You got a lot of people now in that same scene that believe the Earth is flat, and so therefore that looks like small fries compared to that conspiracy.
Yeah, they make us all look crazy, don't they, Gino? There we were, and the public thought we were all very reasonable, rational-sounding, upstanding citizens. And then the moment that we start questioning the shape of the Earth, that's when we lost our credibility with the regular folk. You know what I mean? So fair to say that the flat Earth has destroyed the hoax-busting community. It's all over. But, we still got the memories. We still got the good old days when we could all sit around and all agree that Elliot Rodger was an actor. You know what I mean? Those were the good old days. But it's all behind us now, Gino. And we're only about 3 months into 2016. And the last time you and I caught up was down on the Gold Coast. And we were talking a little bit about the flat Earth scene, if we can put it that way. So why don't we move straight into that topic then? Do you have any thoughts to add to the general conversation about whether or not this whole scene, this whole flat Earth scene on YouTube is actually going anywhere?
Well, we've discussed this many times, and I can't really answer the question because I don't know. I wouldn't have any clue about the statistics and. Oh, pardon me. That was a burp. Sorry, that was rude. I had a big weekend, and I think you've also had one, John. Both nights I went out, and so a bit of a struggle. But as you said, we had to get this impromptu chat because it was an opportunity. We took it. Otherwise, it was never going to happen, because we're so busy all the time. But I think it's just a bunch of people that are with. I don't want to offend anyone, John. I don't want to say these things, but you know how I feel about it. You know how I feel about it.
Well, I mean, it's not the truth shouldn't be offensive to anyone who's genuinely about the truth, Gino. And so I don't have all the truth. You don't. Nobody listening to this does have all the truth. But so long as we're just putting forth our most honest opinions about certain topics, and we're doing so in a way that, like, we're open to change. If you give me more evidence, I'll change my mind. There's nothing offensive about it. And the truth of the matter is that you and I first got into looking at the shape of the Earth, and what we now see is the flat Earth, what I call a cult. You can call it whatever you want. But when we first started looking at this, it really hadn't progressed to that stage yet. And so it's a little journey that a lot of us all around the world have taken at the same time. This hit us all in February of 2015. So it's something that there's a few hundred people, and maybe a few thousand, but probably closer to a few hundred people all around the world. We've all seen it from February onwards. We've all been following it. We've all got different ideas of the little path that it's taken. And I'm personally at the point now where I think there's a lot of people who I feel very sorry for because they've bought into something that just won't be what they've bought into. But we saw that, you and I, with the hoax busting community, which is how you and I first met in the first place. So good things can still come of these things. And if the flat Earth scene goes the way I expect it to go, then it won't be all bad and doom and gloom. Those who try to take something good from it will still benefit from it. But I think we're quickly approaching a point now where more people start to realize that they've been had. And I can go into more detail about that, Gino, but I think you, as someone who was very open-minded to things early on and still pretty open-minded, and you did come into this through the hoax busting community, and you still accept that Santa Barbara, et cetera, are hoaxes. I think you've got an objective opinion to offer to people. You're not someone who just believes that we live on a spinning ball because school says that. I'm not even sure you do believe we live on a spinning ball, actually. I think deep down you know there's no proof that we're spinning, but at the same time, you've seen enough things to make you realize that the flat Earth story has too many holes to believe in. So why don't you go into more detail about that?
Yeah, well, the evidence certainly points to it being a globe or a sphere. And you're guilty of it, actually, John, and others, many others are. Everyone keeps calling it a ball, and I hate to say that I agree with our old mate Jeff, but because he doesn't like it, he criticised you about it. But yeah, when you kind of say ball, yeah, it kind of makes it seem, yeah, it kind of seems like you're, you know, ridiculing it in a way. It kind of sounds derogatory when you say ball. Oh, it's a ball. You know, it's like, oh yeah, well. So I prefer to not use the word. It's a planet, or it's an oblate spheroid, whatever it is. The evidence certainly points to that. When you make your observations with your cameras or telescopes, looking things in the distance, and the way the sun disappears over the horizon, the way the moon does as well. When you're if you're saying in a desert somewhere, everything's flat, and you can see the moon. It disappears below the horizon without changing size. How the hell can any of that be happening if it's one giant flat plane? It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, and then you start talking to pilots and this other profession that I've just recently found out. What are they called? Geodesy. Help me out, John. What are they called? Geodesy?
I think they call their field geodesy.
Geodesy, yeah. And there's these guys. They're all over the world, and there's hundreds of them. And you'd really think that they would have figured out that it's not a sphere by now, and not just it's just a giant. It'd be one ridiculous far-fetched conspiracy to fool everyone that it's not a globe. You know what I mean? It's just but when it was proposed a year ago, I was straight away, I thought, crazy, that's stupid. But hang on a minute, let's all right, let's give it a go. Let's listen to the claims, let's try and debunk them. And surprisingly, it was a bit of a challenge to debunk some of them, which that's a surprise that I had. And at one point, it got that convincing that I almost started buying it. And when you do buy it, pardon me, I burped again. Sorry. When you do buy it, there's a moment where it feels well. There's two feelings. There's feelings like where you feel sick that that it's you've been tricked for so long. And then there's also the moment of the feeling of just wonder, and it just feels fantastic. You just think, oh wow, then if that's the case, then maybe there's a God, maybe I am special, maybe this and maybe that, and I'm the only one that knows, and 99% of the population don't know, but I know, and it's just a wonderful feeling. And you can sort of see how some people, that are a bit, I'm going to use a word here, and I don't want to offend people, but people that might be naive, you can sort of see how they'll just buy into it easily because they're not maybe thinking logically. And then once in their head they believe that it's flat, it's such a lovely feeling. And I almost felt it, John. I almost felt it. And so you can kind of see where they're coming from, some of them. And then when you try and tell them otherwise, they don't want to. And they've been talking about it for so long, they can't go back now and say, oh, I was, all those videos, everything's like, recorded. And now I'm saying the other thing now. I look like a complete idiot. So I'm just going to stick with this no matter what evidence gets thrown at me. So.
Yeah, I guess there's a few things in there. I mean, firstly, when you talk about how you felt about it, I mean, I think, so much, how do I put this? A lot of people become very numb to what they're told. They realize that TV is lying, that the news is manipulative, politicians are at best corrupt, and at worst just outright actors in a circus. On and on it goes. And then you're trained that you evolved from bacteria. You're trained that, there used to be these giant lizard birds walking around, and you live on a a globe, Gino, hurtling through empty space. And so when something comes along that can change your paradigm, even though most people it won't affect them, the ones who do open their mind to it, they can be seriously affected emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. And so I think a lot of what we're seeing right now is people who mean well. They're just not thinking particularly rationally. I'm talking about the people who follow and potentially some of the people who are leading as well. And there's some people out there, they instantly jump to the conclusion of, oh, these people are paid shills. They're paid to disrupt the truth community and all this crap. But anything's possible. That's possible, right? But it's just as possible that these people fully believe all the stuff they're saying. They fully believe that the earth is genuinely flat. They're somehow able to stop their mind from remembering that there's several major problems with the flat earth model, such as the South Celestial Pole, such as some areas that there appear to be some kind of curvature, such as the southern hemisphere flights. I mean, just a few examples of major problems with the flat earth model, and the fact there's no actual part of earth that's actually legitimately flat. I mean, there's a few serious problems with their model, but they're able to push those out of their mind because, in the meantime, this flat earth scene, it gives them a sense of belonging, gives them a sense of purpose, it gives them a sense of hope. And so I don't judge them for that, and I don't criticize them as individuals or as humans for that. But just looking at this objectively, the exact same thing that happened with the hoax busting so-called community has happened with the flat earth so-called scene or community or whatever you want to call it. A lot of people are here for the right reasons, but it doesn't matter how good your intentions are. What matters is the objective evidence. And some of these people have begun outright neglecting and ignoring the evidence that goes against them. And it's very cult-like, and it's as simple as that for me, Gino. What say you?
Yeah, you like to use the word cult-like. I don't like to use the word cult because it's really just a bunch of people that think the Earth is flat that are on YouTube. So I don't know if it's like a cult as such. Depends on how you define the word cult as well. Like in my mind, a cult seems more like a charlatan leader fooling all these people, and they all get together and I don't know. It doesn't seem anything like that. It just seems like it's just people on YouTube that believe the Earth is flat, and maybe not on YouTube. Some of them probably aren't necessarily on YouTube as well. But yeah, continue on what you were saying.
Well, we've got a few people watching live, so we do thank them for coming out. And Labrador in the live chat says, who are the leaders of the goof community, PK and Earth, referring to the video that I made recently about the what I call the goof community. Not sure if you saw that one, Gino, but I started referring to the people who look at TV hoaxes and breaking them down as the goof community, because they're just looking for goofs, movie goofs, right? And it looks like Labrador's picked up on that one, so that's good to see. And Moto Toxin says, did we go to the moon? If we didn't, then can we trust anything from any of the space agencies or government control structures? And my answer to that one is obviously no, we can't trust a word that they say. But just because they're telling us that we live on a giant spinning ball hurtling through empty space doesn't mean that we have to then reject that and assume that we're living on a flat earth. It's that false dichotomy thing that I try to warn people about all of last year. Almost every episode on the Ball Let's Go to the Ground Table, I said, don't get sucked into a false dichotomy of believing in spinning ball or flat. Just think for yourself. Just use your own senses. And I think, my warnings probably fell on deaf ears. People want to belong to something. They get to grow up belonging to a group of, we're modern humans. We're lucky. Did you know that people used to be so stupid? They thought the earth was flat, but not us. We're smarter now, and you're lucky. You go to our school, so now you're lucky. You know that we live on a giant spinning ball hurtling through space. Makes you feel like you belong to something. Then you realize that there's not as much evidence for all of those claims as you thought there was. And in fact, the further you look, the more ridiculous the story gets. Hey, there's a bunch of flat earthers who've realized the lies of the spinning ball. I'm going to be with them now. I'm going to join them. It's not very many people who are willing to say, actually, the spinning ball earthers and the flat earthers, they're both at best deceived and at worst deceiving themselves or others. I'm not going to go with either of them. Not many people can do that. They have to belong to one or the other, and that's why they easily get sucked in. That's why it's one of the many reasons I like your work, Gino, is you were happy to look at the problems with the spinning ball model. You went on live. We did a live broadcast, you and I, over 3,000 views for that one video alone. So you've put yourself out there. You've used your face. You've even used your real name. Like you've shown a lot more courage than a lot of people out there who claim to believe things or claim to be open-minded or claim to be seeking truth. You've shown a lot more courage. You've put more effort into it. You bought a camera just for the purpose. Your tests, your little experiment, you didn't know what to expect when you did it. From what you could tell, actually, there was more curvature than should have been there on a flat Earth, or what you think is curvature. Now you've moderated your views, you've tempered your views, and you now think that flat Earth is wrong, and people who believe in flat Earth have been misled. But you've proven that you're open-minded. How many of these people have?
Hang on, you asking me a question here, John?
Yeah, sometimes my questions seem rhetorical. So you and I have to get better at throwing to one another. It's been a little while. I'm a bit rusty with you. What I'm trying to say to you is, and maybe you're too humble to accept this praise, you are one of the few people who has shown genuine objectivity in all of this. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I'm quite humble. Yes, I'm blushing right now. I'm going all red and. There's some positives that came out of it, I must say, and there's some potential negatives that could come out of what happened last year with this whole thing. For me, there's some sort of, there was a bit of negative because I had a group like this. It comes down to your social groups, family and friends. You start talking about it because you can't help yourself, and then there's a few of them that told me they thought maybe I was losing my mind, and I never even said that I thought the Earth was flat. All I said was that there's a thing going on the internet where I'm watching all these conspiracy theory videos and documentaries. And they're exploring the shape of the Earth, and some believe it's flat. That's all it said. And then I was looking at some of the claims, and that's all it took. Everyone started thinking I was losing my mind, and just jumped to the conclusions that I thought the Earth was flat. I never said it. It's like, what? Can you settle down, guys? And then I went ahead and made the video, and they all think, oh, he's going. Why is he doing that for? Because they think it's just ridiculous. Why would you even need to do that? Like, obviously, it's a sphere. Why do you need to do that? Well, I'm doing it so I can fucking make sure, and then I can show it to people online. And it's a hobby. Why not? It's something to do. Like, what else am I going to do with myself? Whatever. So, it's that. But yeah, in the process, I learned so much because you look at all the claims that they make. It forces you then to learn all the official claims or the official facts of how the universe works, how the planet works and spins and the distance of the sun, and you learn terms like Coriolis effect and inertia and buoyancy, gravity, and you learn all this stuff that you had no idea. I didn't know any of this stuff, and say all that stuff. I know you don't trust any of it, John, but let's just say that all that stuff is actually right. I've learned it all pretty well in just 1 year, just for fun, So that's a positive, but certainly a negative would be, I would have to say, for those that are deep into it. And they start telling, not even just the ones that are skeptical like I kind of was or like many others are, but the ones that are full-blown into it, and they start telling their friends and family. That's where it can be a bit of a problem. I think there was a video by Stephen Mullen. What's his name? Stephen Molyneux?
Stefan Molyneux, yeah.
Yeah, Stefan Molyneux, where Eric Dubé disguised his voice and went on. I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% on that. You know that, but I'm 99%.
You actually do believe that, though. Be honest here. You do believe that.
Yeah. I'm never. You can never be 100% on anything, but yeah, I'm about 99% sure it's him. It
But the
sounds
context,
exactly like him.
just let me add the context because I prefer people don't watch this on YouTube. I prefer they just rip this to MP3 and listen to it as a podcast, right? And so someone could listen to this in a year's time and not know what we're talking about. What happened was maybe 6 months ago now, man. It was a fair while ago. Stefan Molyneux had a flat earther on his show. I think
Hey, wait,
Stefan
John.
Molyneux,
Hey, John.
yeah.
Can we? Well, you might need to explain who Stefan Molyneux is. He's like a left. He's like a extreme right wing sort of conservative. Yeah, describe who he is.
Okay, so Stefan, I'm sure most listeners know who Stefan Molyneux is. He's meant to be like a contemporary libertarian. He's a YouTuber. He's got, I don't know, 100,000 subscribers, a million, I don't know. But his channel is big enough on YouTube that someone's making money from his work, whether it's him or somebody else. He's at that level, right? And he claims to be a libertarian. But anyway, I can't be bothered explaining why he's a fraud. But the point is, he does have an audience. So he had this flat earth on 6 months ago, who some people were saying sounded like Eric Dubé putting a voice on, Eric Dubé being one of the biggest names in flat earth last year and still this year. And I forgot, Gino, you actually do believe that to be the case, don't you?
Yeah, I'm not. I just said I'm 100%, but it sounds very much like him putting on a voice and toning
Why would
down
he
his
do
knowledge
that? Why would he
and
do that?
toning. He's toning down. He toned down his knowledge on the whole thing, made it sound like he was a bit of a rookie, and I have
Yeah,
no
but why
fucking
would he do
idea
that?
why he did it. I have no idea why he did it, but it's
But like, what does he
if
have
it
to
wasn't
gain? What
if it
does he have to
wasn't
gain?
him, I have no fucking idea. He probably exposure perhaps. Like he couldn't actually go on there himself and be himself.
Why
So
not?
he went as he posed as like maybe a follower of his and got exposure because that got like probably what 100,000 views on it, and he would have got more people that are interested into the thing that would buy his books, that would sub to his channel, make
Okay,
more
so
money.
if his aim is to get more exposure, because the guy who was on there with Molyneux was a fool, a damn fool. He made all flat Earth. Okay, he made questioning the size and shape and spin of the Earth that we live on. He made that seem ridiculous because he did such a poor job. What does Dubé have to gain from going on there, pretending to be someone who isn't Dubé, doing a poor job of making Dubé's own arguments? You see what I mean? That'd be like me. Like obviously I'm nowhere near the same. I haven't got anywhere near the same audience as Dubé, right? But that'd be like me posing as someone who isn't me, going on someone else's show and making my arguments poorly. Like what? Like what?
Yeah, well, maybe it's a case that you're genuine and he's not. Maybe he's just a complete charlatan and he's just I don't know. That's why I don't know why he would have done it, but it sounds like him. Can you agree that it kind of sounds like him putting on like a deep, slower voice?
Yeah, it does sound like him. I agree with you, but some people sound like other people, and you just have to look at it from more of a like who benefits perspective. What the hell would be the point of that? I just don't get it. I'm not saying you're wrong because anything's possible, but yeah,
It's a big channel. It's like it's highly unlikely that some random got on there. It's more likely that the two big channels on YouTube, they're massive. They might have got in touch with each other because they've got a massive audience. And he contacted him and said, "I want to get on your show." And he would have gone, "Okay, and we'll have this discussion. We'll go like this, and da 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 da." And because how does one all of a sudden that's a numbnuts that believes the Earth is flat contact Stefan Molyneux and Stefan Molyneux let him on the show like that? It's just I don't know. The whole thing's very intriguing anyway. I'm not 100% that it was him. Okay, John. I think it's more likely that it's him. It sounds like him. That's all. That's all.
yeah. I'm not gonna try and change your mind. But anyway, I completely forgot about that about you, so I'm glad you brought that up. But where were we before you got into Stefan Molyneux? I'm talking about.
Yeah, we
Anyway, one of the points you made earlier was that you've had to go and study the official model of the Earth that we live on now. So
No, John,
even
I'm sorry, John. Sorry to cut you off. I remember where I was up to. Yeah, he made a comment on that interview about how it can be dangerous for people socially. That's what he was saying. It's concerning because it can really make people shun others. Like they'll think that they're, you know what I mean? Like when someone starts jabbering about the Earth is flat, and then all of a sudden his friends start treating him differently. His family starts getting worried about them, and You know what I mean? And they might end up having to see a psychiatrist, and that's the negative side of it. That's the point I was trying to make. And Stefan said that in that interview. Sorry, I'll let you go now.
No, that's all right. And there is some serious legitimacy to that because, most people aren't very well versed in diplomacy or public speaking or crowd psychology or even just the basics of how to speak to people in a way that makes them receptive to what you have to say, right? Like the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. That's not a textbook at school for a reason because if everyone knew how to converse with one another on a way that made conversation easier, then more people would be likely to have more meaningful conversation. When you've got when the masses are running around and most of the masses are clueless in how to broach new topics with people, then they're never getting anywhere. They're always spinning their wheels, right? And so most people who are tuning into some of these flat earth shows or these host busting shows or whatever, they might hear information, even if the information they're hearing is good or the arguments are good, when they then go back to their friends or family, they generally don't have the same skills in introducing this information to people, right? Which is one of the reasons why I would encourage people, if you want to start broaching more important topics with your friends or family, you would never start off with, oh, did you know that 9/11, there were no planes on 9/11? Or the Sydney siege, no one died, no one got hurt. It's like trying to shoot a fly with a cannonball. It's just ridiculous, right? You need to start off with something really simple, like getting them to question, did you hear about that psychological study where they found that, when people were subjected to blah, 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 just get people thinking to start off with, oh, what do you do for a hobby? Oh, I like to read about, the way that people in large groups can all be convinced to believe things that aren't true. And, oh, yeah, I've been reading this book about these cults that they found 50 years ago and just general shit to get people in the mood of thinking about things, right? Some of these flat earth leaders are saying, go out and tell the whole world that you're a flat earther. Do you know what I mean? Like straight off the bat. And so these people are ill-equipped to then take this belief system and do anything with it other than get themselves ostracized. And all that's going to do is make them more dependent on the group, which is classic cult behavior. Make it so that people are isolated from everyone around them. And if you can't do that physically, and an online cult can't do it, then do it, how do I say? Do it in such a fashion that these people will isolate themselves from the world around them. And by identifying as flat earthers, that's exactly what's going to happen. And that's what's happening all around the world. Literally hundreds of people right now are either telling or contemplating telling their friends and family that they believe the earth is flat. And that's only going to end one way. And it won't be with their friends and family converting, Gino. What say you?
Exactly right. Exactly right. Hey, but John, how the fuck did Mark Sargent get someone to make him an app, a flat earth map for Mark Sargent's clues, and no one approached you to make an app for you? What the fuck's the deal with that?
Yeah, I know, right? I haven't actually checked out Mark's app, though. Is it any good?
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah. No, I'm being sarcastic, by the way.
I haven't seen it. You tell me. I don't know.
No, it's very
What's it
poorly
do?
made. It's very poorly made. It's like really cheap and shit. And well, I think someone made it for him for free anyway. But something like that still would have cost thousands of dollars. But you know what I mean? Oh, I'm just upset that no one approached you, John, and made you an app.
Well, I mean, it's not too late. I mean, I still consider myself at the early phase of my YouTube and online speaking about what I think career. So there's still plenty of time. So if there's any web.
I'm only joking, obviously, guys.
I had no idea that there even was a Mark Sargent app until someone brought it up with me. I don't know if it might have even been you who brought it up like a week ago. So I can't remember, but
It was me. It was me. We joked about it. Remember?
No, I mean, the time for me, every day's a blur now, dude. I'm working 6-day weeks. Sunday's my one day off, which is why I thought we needed to have an impromptu chat. Because if we don't do it soon, I'll be working Sunday soon, the way things are going. So, yeah. So no, I don't remember our specific conversation, but yeah, I mean, Mark Sargent has an app. I've got nothing against him having an app, by the way. I think if it works, it's a good way to get your message out there. So I'm not going to criticize him for that. But what I am saying more broadly, just about the whole flat earth scene, is that there are a lot of well-meaning people who are searching for answers and are searching for belonging. And I think at the moment, this flat earth scene is giving them that. And I think a lot of them are going to be pretty upset when this thing ends the only way it can possibly end. And that won't be with it getting mainstream and saving the world. Most of these people can't even save themselves. They're still eating poorly, not taking care of themselves, not reading books, not doing any genuine thinking. They're just tuning in and getting their feelings. And like you said, Gino, once you get that feeling of, oh, flat Earth is going to save the world, and we know something that the rest of the world don't know. Once you get that feeling, it can be pretty addictive and infectious. And I think there are some people who are pretty addicted to it right now. They're infected by it, but it will break. And when it does, it won't be easy for some of these people to readjust if they've gone down the path of, trying to spread it to their friends and family, because their friends and family, by and large, will not be receptive. There might be one or two exceptions, but their friends and family won't be receptive. Now, this isn't me arguing against trying to tell your friends and family the truth. The issue here with the flat Earth thing is that it's not the truth. There are serious problems with the models being put forward, whether it's the AE map, which can't account for the Southern Hemisphere flights, can't account for the South Celestial Pole, among two other things, or if it's the sinusoidal map. And I mean, Lawrence Wright is a really cool guy. I love the guy. I can't wait to go to England. I'm going to take a bus ride out there and go meet up with the guy for a beer. Seems like a really cool guy, but his model also has some serious problems. And I think, I think a lot of people are refusing to accept that maybe they've bought into something which has just as many problems as a spinning ball Earth model. And I don't plan to spend the whole night talking about it, Gino, but one of the reasons, like I said, that I do admire your work is that you're one of these Jeffrey types who are just like, it must be a spinning ball, school wouldn't lie about that. You're one of those people. But at the same time, you're not one of the, it's definitely flat and it's going to save the world. You're not one of those people either. And I think it's best to avoid buying into either group mentality. What say you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. But I was just doing the running joke. Obviously, you'd forgotten our conversation that we had about a couple of weeks ago when I told you that Jeff was getting all angry about someone approaching Mark for a free app, and he was like, "No one fucking came to me for a fucking app. I'm doing anything for fucking free. Where's my fucking app?" I was trying to do that joke, but you didn't. I think you didn't get it.
No, okay, yeah, I get it now. Yeah, so
yeah, I'm running the joke. I'm thinking, fuck, I don't think John gets it. Oh dear, that was
no. I remember now. It wasn't that Sergeant had the app that was funny. It was that Jeffrey got upset because
where's my fucking app? He wants one. That's what it was. No, but in all seriousness, he's a funny guy, that Jeff. Like I know you're not a fan of him, but I'm not saying I am either. But I'd have to say, if I'd choose a guy that I'd probably like more, not like more, but trust what they're saying more, I'd probably have to say Jeff, to be honest, because that Mark guy's out of his tits. He's either acting, or if he's not acting, then he's out of his mind. And and some guys just going ahead and made him an app. Like that is pretty. You can sort of see where Jeff could be getting upset about that. Like,
I forgot that you are still a fan of Jeff, and
I'm not a fan of Jeff. I'm just saying, I'm not a fan. I'm just saying, if I had to choose between the two, put a gun in my head and said, which one would you rather have sex with? I mean, which one would you rather listen to? It'd be Jeff.
Yeah, the thing too with Jeff is, I don't really care what he says about me. I still find him an entertaining character. Like, I will still listen to some of his podcasts. I don't have time to listen to all of them, but if I run out of other stuff to listen to in a week and he's got a couple of podcasts up, I'll just rip one to an mp3, give it a listen. I have to skip forward ahead of some parts that just gets a bit sort of boring, but I still like listening to him, man. I don't hate the guy, and I still like to give him the benefit of the doubt that he's just some weird Canadian dude who just got too big in Sandy Hook and Boston. And that was sort of as far as he was going to go. But I still like to think that he means well, and he's just a bit of an odd, emotional, slightly a little bit too angry, dude in Canada, and he's entertaining. So, but yeah, you are still a fan. I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. You're still a Jeffrey fan, but that's okay. It's not a big deal.
All right. I'm a fan. Whatever you keep saying it, I'm a fan. Whatever. I don't care either way. Look. The other thing about this whole movement too, it allows you to become more imaginative, right? You start thinking, What? Okay. Well, if that's the case, then what the hell's the moon then? Oh, what's the sun? The sun's something. How far away is it really then? Oh, and you start thinking all these interesting, new possibilities that could be the case, and that's something positive that's sort of come out of it too. And for me, the biggest one that's sort of been going through my head for a while now is like perhaps maybe that this whole movement, this atheist movement, has been going pretty strong the past 10 years. It's been a while, like I don't know, maybe 2007, 2006. Richard Dawkins really kicked in, and he's obviously trying to push that there is no God, evolution, blah blah blah. So it makes you start thinking that maybe perhaps that's also part of it. That's another psyop or something like that, because they're trying to lie to us about that. They're trying to lie to us about God and how we really came about, etc. So yeah, so you get really imaginative with all this, and for the flat earthers out there that actually truly believe that the Earth is flat. So okay, let's explore that then. So therefore, there must be a group of people out there. I don't know how big the group of people are that really know the shape of the Earth, and they're hiding it from us. You'd have to ask the question to yourself: would they actually, if they know that, would they really know what happens after death?
Yeah, okay. So we were gonna save this topic for I guess the later part of the show, but if you want to move straight onto that one right now, this is a fascinating area to look at. So we will move on to that one, but just before we do, just putting I guess a full stop to that little chat about the flat Earth scene or psyop or cult or whatever you want to call it. Uh, my final thoughts on that one, Gina. Then I'll give you the final word, and then you can sort of segue into the next topic. My final thoughts on that one are, yeah, for me personally, if you go back and look at the videos that I've been making, the things I've been saying for a long time, my point has always been you don't want to get sucked into false dichotomies, whether it's Labor versus Liberal or the Democrats versus Republicans or whatever. People are very easily swayed into picking one side or the other because they want to belong to sides. They want to have that, what they feel like is a security or a solidarity in being in groups. And I think, it's always important to try and avoid that if you can and just go where the evidence takes you. And sometimes the evidence takes you to a point where you're not going to know for sure whether this thing is true or that thing is true, or you just have to say, look, the simple reality is I don't know. I don't know exactly what Earth we're standing on. There's lots of evidence against the spinning ball Earth. In fact, there's no evidence for the spinning ball Earth, if we're being honest. However, the flat Earth thing is pretty easily shown to be full of holes. And right now, we're watching people as each new hole is exposed or made a center of attention. They're squirming about it, and it's a little bit concerning. And to an extent also embarrassing if you care about these people or you feel as though they mean well. It's a little bit embarrassing to see them, avoiding some topics that really do hurt their overall worldview. And I've got a lot more to say about that, not so much tonight, but over the coming months when I get a bit more time and a bit less busy with work, I'll be going into more detail about this. And people have been pretty well forewarned about what's coming. And if you're still in a mindset of wanting to believe in hope and change, flat Earth hope and change, you're going to learn the same way as the hope and change Obama believers did, that hope and change doesn't work that way. But it's probably going to be a thicker and faster realization for you because 2016 is the year that things change, I think, with this whole topic. And that's all I'm going to say for tonight, Jen. I'll give you the final thought on the flat Earth scene and then segue straight into this the more existential aspect of all of this, if you like.
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure how structured it was going to be, and at what point of the talk we were going to talk about that part. So I just launched into it. Sorry, but yeah, I don't really want to talk about flat Earth too much. To be honest, it's been done to death, and it's in my mind, it's certainly not flat, and it hasn't been quite a waste of time because, like, we've learned a lot out of it, and but yeah, hopefully, not too many people out there get hurt from it. As you said, there's a bit of a concern. But I don't know, there might not be much of a concern because, like, there's a lot of crazy religions out there and many, many different types, and some of them are more wacky than the others. And some, what they believe, and they start talking to other, like, randoms about what they believe. Nothing. They just think, oh, that guy's a bit crazy. He thinks this and this and that, and nothing really bad happens from that. It could be just like that. Maybe the flat Earth movement or scene or group gets a little bit bigger and bigger, and it just becomes just a person that believes the Earth is flat, and they don't get shunned as much. And it's maybe of no harm to anyone. Hopefully, it ends up being that, or maybe as the time goes on, it will dwindle and less people will believe in it, because they'll obviously start doing their own research and they want to actually know the truth rather than just continue on being delusional and think that it's flat when it's not really flat. Well, I don't think it's flat. I don't know, whatever. If you guys think it's flat, I don't really want to offend anyone here. That's pretty much my final thoughts on that. So if you want to, whatever thing you wanted to move on to.
Well, I thought it sounds like you wanted to segue onto the whole idea of we don't really know what happens when we die, and we just accept it, that like we don't know, right? We just accept it. We don't know. We're going to have to wait. No one can know, etc. But from what I can tell lately, you've been thinking about, well, is it possible that maybe some people do have a better idea about it than they're letting on? I don't want to say too much, because when you brought this up with me, whether it was a week or two ago, I was like, actually, it's funny you should bring that up, because that's a topic I've thought about myself. So since you wanted to bring that one up, why don't you get the ball rolling, and then I'll pick up from there.
I don't really have much to say on it, because and how can one know? Like, I don't, no one can actually know what happens after death. It's impossible to know. But it is interesting to explore the theory that, because all these so-called psyops and whatever it is, that if you want to believe the moon landings didn't happen, to 9/11, to these shooting hoaxes, to the extreme that the Earth is bloody flat and they're faking everything in space, and if you want to do all that, then fuck. Well, then where does it end? Like, maybe these people know so much stuff, and for me that's a big one. Like, what happens after death? That is. You got, there's other ones like, oh, they know how to cure cancer. They know exactly what cancer is. They know how to start it. They know how to get rid of it. Same with AIDS, or AIDS isn't even fucking real. They made that up, or all these crazy things. Really far-fetched stuff. If it is the case though, if it's true, then these people, I don't know. I reckon if that's the case, then they must know things like that. They must know what happens after death. That's just a gut feeling that I have at the moment, and you have to ask yourself then, well, why would they want to lie to us about death? And I must say it's been pushed a lot in recent times. When I say recent, probably the last 20 years to 15 years. Because a long time ago, there was a lot of people were religious. They believe we go to heaven. It's a lovely, place. The afterlife. It's great, and you can live a happy life. And but obviously that's not true, because sounds like absolute shit. Oh, and if you're bad, then you go to hell. People were taught that for so long. But maybe it's neither of that, or neither. It's probably nothing. Or there's theories about people. I know people that believe in reincarnation. So you just end up being reincarnated as someone else. So that's interesting. But what I find interesting about it is that if they were to in terms of an agenda or a motive to do it, if there's a small group of people that control the planet or control the population of the Earth and want to keep us as slaves, they want to keep us as the, really good consumers, or the best slaves and the best consumers that we can possibly be. That would have to be something. Wouldn't you agree, John? Like, they want us to believe that we only live once, and when we die, that's it. And to keep that's an easy way to keep us in fear as well, because they can kill you, or you can get killed, and you're constantly frightened about death, because you don't know what happens after you die. It would just be just darkness for eternity, or just nothing. You're no longer able to enjoy pleasure anymore, and so so therefore, you know what I mean. Anyway, it'd be interesting if we knew the truth of what really happens. And let's just say that you don't die. Maybe there's an afterlife, and it's beautiful and it's fantastic. How would the world operate in terms of how we operate now? Like, how would capitalism work if everyone? I'm not talking about like a percent. I'm talking about 100% of everyone knew that there was an afterlife. How would we all operate instead? We probably wouldn't be the same, would we?
Well, exactly. I mean, imagine just for one example, if everybody knew that everything they do during this existence, there would be consequences for it in an existence after this time. And they knew that this time was basically like a test, just to test how much they truly do love each other, how much they love themselves, how much they care about good things. If everyone knew that this was like a test and that the rewards or the consequences would be after the end of this existence, would they behave differently to what they currently do right now? And I think the answer is obviously yes. If everybody knew that this was all there is, that there actually is nothing beyond this, your only time to make a change is now, would people, if you're supposed to make a change to yourself or to others or to the world, if they knew for certain that this was the only chance they got, would they behave differently? And again, for me, the answer is yes. The issue that we've got right now is that no one really knows, and so they'll just choose whichever belief suits them best at any given time. So when they've got a really important ethical or moral decision to make, if they're going to make the bad decision anyway, they can justify it as, well, we just evolved from monkeys and none of this really matters. But then on the flip side, when they can see that there are things around them that are wrong, that things that need to be changed, they'll think, well, there's no point changing it now. This is just how it is. Maybe there'll be a better place to go to, and so on and so forth. And so I think at all times, most people deluding themselves about what this existence is and what comes next because it suits them to do so. But if we all knew, if we all had a much better idea of what this was and what comes next, we'd all behave differently. And the same people who tell us that we evolved from bacteria that got hit, there was something got struck by lightning and the first single cell organism started, and then, a couple billion years later, humans are walking around or some fucking ridiculous nonsense like that. They've got us believing that. They've got us believing that the Earth that we live on used to be inhabited by giant lizard birds 66 million years ago. And they've got us all believing that we're on a giant sphere, Gino, floating through empty space in eternal nothingness, and that there's really no point to our existence. Now, if they can convince us to believe all of that, then even if the truth of why we're here and what comes next, even if it was blindingly obvious, they would have managed to delude us out of seeing it. And I think that's what's happened. I think whatever this is meant to be probably a bit more obvious than it is, but because they've got us all so programmed into believing utter nonsense, we can no longer really see the purpose that's probably right in front of our eyes, if any of that makes sense, Gina.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. That's it's an interesting. Yeah, well, as time has gone as well, like if you think the past 60 years in terms of industry, what sort of industries have thrived, and how groups of people have gone extremely wealthy also from these sorts of things. That's what you also got to think about. In the old days, people actually believed that they'd go to hell for certain sexual acts. So I suppose that for capitalism, it'd be better to have an atheistic society. But in saying that, which it's sort of confusing me now because it wasn't Stalin or Lenin or what is it, Karl Marx communist movement 100 years ago, whenever it was. That was atheist, wasn't it?
Well, it wasn't just atheist, it was largely Jewish. And so the idea was that they were anti religion. And the funny thing is, if you look at a Soviet flag, you'll see the hammer and sickle. But if you look at the hammer and sickle, the sickle almost looks like the moon from an Islam flag, and the hammer almost looks like a Christian cross. And then above it, you've got a star, which you could easily see as potentially being like the Star of David, the Jewish star. So you've got like
Can
a
we
Jewish star.
can we share screen? How do you share screen that? Because I think I know what you're talking about. I want to see that because
Well, let me show you right now. Soviet flag,
I
and
know what it looks like, but I need a refresher because I've seen the flag millions of times, but I just want to see what you're talking about.
all right. Well, I'll bring it up right now. Hold on. Let me go to screen share here. And thanks to the listeners for their patience. I know that is that coming up there?
Oh, I can't see it. Have we actually got listeners at the moment?
Yeah, we've got like 30 listeners, dude.
Are you fucking kidding
Uh,
me? There's 30 people listening. Oh, I thought I can't see on my screen.
well, can
Oh,
you say
there's 30
that?
people listening. There's 30 people listening. I'm starting to get nervous now, John.
No, just chill out there, dude. Now listen, can you see this flag?
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Well, that's
So
not yeah, that's yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, but I'm not convinced. I'm not on your
no,
team on
I'm
that
not
one.
saying that is the case, but you were talking earlier about being able to use your imagination a little bit more. Well, use your imagination with this one, and you can see how on a flag of an atheistic communist bloc, this was their flag. And what do you have? You've got the sickle, which kind of looks like the Islamic flag. You've got the hammer, kind of looks like the cross, and they're crossing one another out. But what sits above them? A star. Now, this one's five pointed in its defense. It's not a six pointed star. But the point is, you've got the star above the hammer and sickle. Now, these are just symbols. These are just images. They don't prove anything. It was something that I'd never really thought about prior to that. And I'll tell you what, while we're here, why don't we look up like the Islam symbol, just so people can, the crescent moon, just so people can get an idea of what I'm talking about there. There's your crescent moon, right? Don't know if people can see that. And then what do I
Obviously, the
mean by the
star,
star of David? Yeah, but I mean, I think most
but it
people,
has got the star. It does have the star. Yeah.
yeah, I think most people accept that if you look into who was behind the communist revolution or what have you, that it was oddly overrepresented with Jewish people for one reason or another. And yeah, I mean the idea of atheism, obviously, as you've indicated, leads towards capitalism, materialism. I mean, if you knew that this was just a test and the real fun starts once this is all over, then you wouldn't waste your time here accumulating useless shit, would you? But that's what most people do now. They just accumulate crap. They're materialists. And that materialism seems to spawn out of this lack of faith that there's something more to all of this existence. So I think it is very important. And there's no doubt. I mean, you mentioned the God Delusion. That came out in 2006. I read it within a year or two of it coming out. I used to be right into that kind of crap as well. It's the same idea. You are just an unimportant speck on an unimportant sphere hurtling through unimportant space. And so I think, without trying to sort of overlap too many topics at once, there is a huge yearning out there of people looking for purpose. And I don't think the flat earth is the first, and I don't think it's going to be the last one to offer people some purpose. And you can't blame them for looking for it. But at the same time, it doesn't justify them finding it in topics that are simply not provable. Gino.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, that topic that we're discussing about death is something that we can't necessarily do experiments. You know what I mean? Not like we did last year. We did some experiments of flat Earth. Some people were like trying to measure the temperature of the moon. They were doing tests for filming things in the distance, which is what I did with my curvature test on my channel. You can't really do that with this. I mean, it's a potential another conspiracy theory that the elites know what happens after death, and they're lying to us about it, so that way we can, be happy little consumers and slaves, and they can control us better. But we can't. No, I don't know. There's no way that we can actually do an experiment. Like, the only way I can test it is if I just fucking kill myself right now, and then I'll know. I go, oh, hey, hang on, I'm dead now. So, whoops. We can't actually, test that one, which is unfortunate. And I don't know how else we can really research it. I suppose there might be some docos on it, or some books, or some there's people talk about near death experiences where they died and came back, and they report a light and that sort of stuff. But you can't believe what people say. It could just be like a bit of a delusion, something that their brain's showing them, and you don't know what it is. You can't really trust that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair enough. Well, I think one of the points you made was about how if they can control people this much, they really can control what people believe about death. And most people have almost no idea about existence, let alone post-existence. So they're very easily led. And if you're a slave master or someone who controls people's behaviors, you want them to be afraid of what would happen if they were to die. You need them to be afraid of that, because if they stood up to you, you'd be in trouble. There's way too many people for a slave master to control. It's that simple. So the best method of control isn't physical coercion, it's psychological or spiritual coercion. If you can coerce them into believing that they're better off with putting up with whatever is happening today, because at least they're alive, then they're not going to stand up against you because they're going to fear being dead. And I think they've pretty successfully done that. And you had a lot more to say about that, Gino, when we were chatting on Skype than you do now. You don't want to elaborate on any of this?
Hang on a cotton pick a minute. I believe that I think I've said more tonight than I did on our chat. What am I missing?
Oh, okay then. So you've said that you can't do experiments on this, and you're quite right.
Well, hang on. Well, yeah, okay. You agree? Yeah, okay. Sorry, what were we going to say?
But that doesn't mean that you can't speculate about what might potentially follow this little plane of existence. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't like to speculate too much. I mean, it's using your imagination, and it's all just hearsay. I mean, it's all fantasy stuff. It's kind of pointless. Like, people out there don't really want to hear what I fantasize about what could happen after death. It's not really helpful. It's important to know what reality is and what's the truth and that sort of stuff. But hey, look, if you want to have a bit of fun with it, I don't know. Well, what can happen after death? Maybe if there, like, say, if there is a God, and that sort of stuff, then perhaps he or she or it would want there to be a system, so that way we can behave ourselves in this life, and then maybe there is like some sort of like a hell and some sort of like a heaven, and we're supposed to know that, so that way in this life we can be good, and the world would be a better place because there's going to be a consequence. There's going to be consequences if we don't. But because no one believes in that now, everyone can just do all kinds of fucking disgusting things in our lifetimes because we don't believe that there's a hell. Actually, that's an interesting topic. So let's say, because a lot of people don't want to believe in hell these days. If you speak to a lot of like Christians and not modern day Christians, and you watch those debates against like scientists, atheists, against like a religious leader, a lot of them won't accept that there's a hell. Like I don't know, I've watched many of them, and they don't want to entertain the idea of hell because it makes their arguments look bad. So they pretend that the whole hell thing is just an old school. It's an old fashioned thing that people used to believe, 100 years ago. We don't believe in hell now. You know what I mean? But it would make sense that there is a hell. You know what I mean? Because if there's only a heaven, that's kind of bad because that means no matter what you do, like I could go to hell now, rape women and shoot a couple of people. It doesn't matter. I'm still going to go to hell. I'm still going to go to heaven because there's no hell. You know what I mean? So that also doesn't quite make sense. Anyway, I'm just using my imagination here. There was a strong possibility of reincarnation. I think I'm swaying towards that. But how that would work, like, I don't know. Let's say I get reincarnated as an animal, or I get reincarnated as a woman in a different time. I mean, how does that work? It kind of gets really complicated there, and you have to really use your imagination for all that stuff.
Yeah, indeed. Hell and heaven. The old false dichotomy, hey? One of the best false dichotomies, really, isn't it?
It's a false dichotomy, yeah.
The old, you'll either end up upstairs, in the clouds, chilling out, taking it easy, or down below, burning, screaming, agony. Not much fun at all. A nice little false dichotomy that gets put into young people's heads, even if they're not religious, not formally religious, from a very young age. But how many people even think about the fact that the future doesn't really exist, Gino? Do you know what I mean? Like, the future is just a construct in your mind. You know what I mean? Like, oh, if I save my money in 5 years' time, I'll be able to afford to buy my own block of land and live off the land and avoid the system. But that's just a construct in your mind 5 years in the future, right? Same as the past. No two people's recollection of an event, even an event a few hours ago, is the exact same, right? But in their mind, it's the reality because it actually happened. They think their memory of the past actually happened. But of course, unless you believe in Einsteinian, this nonsense of 4 dimensions that we're like worming our way through the 4th dimension. If you believe in that nonsense, okay, the past is real. But for most sane people, the past is just a construct in their mind as well. The past is a construct. the future is a construct. The only thing that's real is right now. But most people completely believe in the future as though it's actually this place that they're going to. Do you see what I'm trying to say to you?
Yeah, oh yeah, but look, if you get into a DeLorean and you hit 88 miles per hour, then no, I'm joking around. I totally agree with you. Like I don't know about this whole like time being an illusion thing. I first started hearing about it from David Icke about 10 years ago. He was talking about it. That's not something I'm versed in, but it's interesting what you're saying. I'm liking this. You know, sometimes I listen to your podcast and I you know, and I'm just a listener. But tonight I'm honoured to actually be, you know, on the show and hearing it. Anyway, sorry, you go. You keep talking, John.
No, it's good to have you here, mate. And the first five impromptu chats, I was lucky enough to have Matrix Decode live from Spain via London on the show, and he's always terrific to talk to. And this is really something that he likes to talk about as well. Is well, what is existence? They call it existentialism, but you have to avoid using those words because most people find these words scary or confronting or what have you. So you try not to use those words. Just what are we talking about? Well, why the fuck are we here? And a lot of people, they don't want to talk about that. You know, they'll talk about their favorite contestant on a cooking show on television, or they'll talk about what they don't like about this character in the news or this politician or whatever. Or they'll talk about work. A lot of people will talk about work endlessly. You know, even people who work fucking 12-hour days, get them outside of work and they're still talking about work. They'll talk about all kinds of shit. But then when you get them to try and talk about, yeah, but I mean, why do you think we're here? What do you think's going on? It's too much for them. And I think in a lot of ways you can't blame them. They've been programmed to try and avoid that topic altogether. And I think that's one of the reasons why funerals are such dark and dour places is because you can't avoid the topic of death there. Because that's the whole fucking reason that you're in that room at that time is because someone died, right? And so you have to confront death then. So it's kind of like funerals, whether it happens once or twice a year, that's where people have to sort of, broach that subject in their mind of, well, what are we actually here for and what happens next? But that way they get to spend the rest of the year just ignoring it, pushing it out of their mind, not thinking about it because it's all too much for them. And I think one of the reasons is because the moment you start thinking about it, you start realizing, holy shit, I have no idea why I'm here, but I'm living my life as though there's really no purpose and I'm just here to accumulate shit. But then when you think, well, maybe that's not why I'm here, and that becomes too much, the cognitive dissonance kicks in and they just go back to avoiding the topic. And that's really, Gino, where people like you and me and a lot of the people who are going to listen to this podcast, that's where they are potentially dangerous in a spiritual way when they're around regular sleeple. It's why they have to be shunned. It's why they have to be ostracized, because if you walk around in a group of 50 people and start getting to question why they're really there, well, unless you're very skilled at the art of conversation, you are going to get shunned. And that's because these people, they don't want some guy there making them question this shit. If they wanted to question it, they'd question it. They much prefer drinking their beers, watching their television, ignoring the fact that maybe there's more to this existence than we're being told.
Yeah, well, I reckon if you ask a lot of people out there what the word existentialism means, they wouldn't even know what it means in the first place, let alone want to talk about it. You know.
Yeah, that's it. They don't want to talk about it, man. And they think they're happy. And you know what? I can't actually prove to them that I'm more happy than them. I don't really think I am. In fact, one of the things that you and I discussed on that Sunday sessions, was it Sunday sessions 15, the one that we did down in Melbourne there on location? Was I said to you, like, since you've learned that there's a few problems with the spinning ball model, has it made you happier? And you just said point blank, no, actually, not really. Do you want to spend a few minutes just expanding on, I guess, your own, I don't say your happiness, because it's obviously very, very subjective and hard to convey to people, but I guess your own contentness with your own life over the last 12 months and sort of how it ebbed and flowed, along with your other beliefs about things.
So hang on, the specific question, sorry, John, you asked me when you were down here. What was the question again,
When I
sorry?
was down there, we said this live on the air. I was like, Gino, because back then you have to understand you were a lot more critical of the spinning ball model than you are now, right? And I said
Yeah.
to you, now that you know what you know, has it made you happier? And you said, no, no, it hasn't.
Oh, at the time, yeah, and okay, and you want to know what it's like now? Okay, so there's two things here. because I did say I didn't really want to talk about the flat Earth topic anymore, but so this answering this question is bringing that up again. But I did want to say one more thing about flat Earth, which I'm not sure if you're ready to go on that topic yet either. But has it made me happier or not? Well, you know, no, not really. It hasn't really changed anything really. It's for me, it's just it's been an interesting topic. It forced me to research all these things which I would never have normally looked into, and I've learned a lot of stuff. So yeah, it was good, and I kind of thought it almost could have been at one point, and it wasn't, and that's about it. It's no big deal. I wasn't broken hearted or anything like that. I did get a bit frustrated when I don't believe it comes down to a matter of opinion. So I've said it a few times. I said it on my actual conclusion on the last video. I said it's, you know, it comes down to your interpretation of the footage. But I don't really believe that. It's clear that it's curvature. So it's, you know, so it gets frustrating. That gets a bit frustrating for me. So that's a bit annoying. But yeah, how do I feel? Yeah, I don't really feel anything really. It was just something that another conspiracy theory that was introduced into my life, in which I looked into, and that's about it really. It wasn't. I haven't really got anything else to say to that. I'm not sure if you want to move on to the other topics before it starts getting too late, John. I did want to. Can we talk? I just wanted to say to the listeners out there, I don't know, out of the listeners or the live listeners or the ones who are going to download and listen to it later on, who are actually flat earthers, but I haven't seen anyone yet to this day, and I'm not sure if you have, John, discuss what craters are. And I brought this up with you a few weeks ago on a Skype chat, and at that point you hadn't really heard of it either, and you were sort of like intrigued. And I'd just like to bring up that subject for anyone listening or anyone that's going to listen to this. If the Earth is flat and you believe it's flat, then how do we explain craters? Not the ones that the volcanoes apparently spew up. The impact craters that supposed meteorites make, or so. Is it a possibility that all of them are actually just volcanoes? But I don't think it is, because you see the footage of the pictures of some of them. I've never been to one myself personally. I've just seen pictures of them on documentaries and on the internet, whatever. They clearly look different, So I'm not sure if you want to screen share, John, some of the impact craters. Oh, here we go. You're one step ahead of me, aren't you?
Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
All right, sweet. So, yeah, this is one that we brought up in a Skype chat. Well, I didn't bring it up. You brought it up. I don't know, maybe a month or two ago now. It's been a long time. But you made the point of, well, hold on. If the flat earthers are right, then how can we have impact craters? Because the official story is impact craters are caused by, solid physical objects just hurtling through space and then hitting the Earth. Do you know what I mean? Now I thought to myself, that's a really good point, and I thought, well, let's look into that. How long have we known about craters? Well, if you do the research, and I was actually doing this research with you, like while we were sitting there chatting on Skype, I was like, hold on a second, how long have these craters been around? Well, if you look into the history, and again, this is from the official story. You have to understand Wikipedia, or Ziopedia as I call it. This is the official story center. If you want to know what you're supposed to believe, not what's true, but what you're supposed to believe, you go to Wikipedia. So if you go to Wikipedia impact crater, it's an approximately circular depression in the surface of a planet, moon, or other solid body formed by the hypervelocity impact of a smaller body with the surface, in contrast to volcanic craters, which result from explosion and internal collapse. Impact craters typically have raised rims and floors that are lower in elevation than the surrounding terrain. Okay? Yeah, and it's got that it's there are craters on Venus, Mars, Europa, Io, and Titan. They're visible, blah blah blah. All very funny. Anyway, moving on. So when did the ones on Earth? When did people start saying that these are from asteroids or whatever? And it turns out that this Daniel Barringer guy was one of the first to identify these impact craters. The thing is, though, he was doing this only just over 100 years ago. it's only been the last sort of 120 years that people have been claiming that these large rock formations or these large geological formations were caused by things flying into them from space. And I've got more to say on all of that, but we were discussing it, like I said, just live chatting on Skype, and I pointed out to you, well, hold on. If they've only been claiming that these giant areas are caused by giant rocks from space for the last 100 years or so, how does that fit in with the official story about us knowing that we've lived on a ball for hundreds or thousands of years, Gino? What say you?
Yeah, it is. I brought up the subject with you. I hadn't done any research on it. I literally just it popped in my head, and I thought, hang on a minute. And then the next chance I got to talk to you, I remembered to bring it up, and I hadn't done any research on it at all. You started to as we were talking about it, and to your surprise, yeah, you realised that it was only that guy. And didn't you say that guy had some sort of affiliation with some other guy? Who was it? And it was around the same time as someone else.
Well, this is all going back a little while, but so I haven't actually gone back and looked into it again. I've just been so busy with other things, but I do remember that there were a few.
We should have been more prepared. Sorry, you go.
No, that's okay. But like, I do remember that when we looked into it, we didn't have to look far to see that there was a lot more to this whole story, and it didn't take too much research to realize it. And the point is simply here that even things like craters that we've just been trained from a young age to believe are caused by giant things hitting them from space, we've actually got no evidence that that is the case. We've got zero real evidence that these formations are caused by things coming from outer space. Now, I imagine, Jenna, you're going to say that you still probably believe that these craters are caused by things from outer space. For me personally, I'm thinking I've got no proof that space even exists. So you've had a couple of months now to think about these craters. How do you explain them?
Yeah, well, as I was going to say, it is very odd that that it's such recent in time in history that they've discovered them and figured out what they are. Hang on, so it was actually when they first discovered them was only like just over 100 years ago. Is that right?
Well, it's not that they discovered them so much as it is that they hypothesized that these formations were caused by giant things from outer space hitting them. I mean, again, if you've grown up in my generation and probably a couple of generations beforehand, the idea that there's giant rocks hurtling through space, impacting and leaving craters on Earth and on the moon and elsewhere, it's just such a natural part of what you've been led to believe that it seems crazy to even question it. But actually, the moment you start questioning it, you realize how crazy it is. Like, hold on, I've spent my whole life believing that there are these things that are hitting Earth. They're coming from nowhere. They could come from anywhere. They hit the Earth, leave a huge crater. They even led to the extinction of the dinosaurs. And hey, anything's possible. This story could be true, but if you ask yourself honestly, what evidence do you have that this is true, that it's actually happened before? If you're being honest, you'll quickly realize you've got no evidence that this is happening. Do you see what I'm trying to say to you, Jenna?
Well, yeah, you can turn your conspiracy theory mind on, right? And your imagination can run wild because, if you want to look into the whole, keeping us in fear all the time, just like the Cold War, how at any point, in the early 60s, at any point, the Russians could just send nukes and bomb America, and you're always constantly in fear that there's going to be at any moment, at any time, a nuke could just wipe out your entire city, your home, your kids all die, right? This could be included in all that. Like they could have, concocted all this as well, and in terms of the fact that at any moment another crater, because they did it to the dinosaurs, another meteorite could come and wipe us all out, the entire human race with one bang, and then you get movies like Armageddon, which is that. What do you call it? Not predictive programming, but there's a word for how they, programming or fear mongering or whatever. The term I'm trying to say.
I'm not sure what term you're trying to say, but definitely it is programming. That is, of course, what it is. Programming into your mind, seeing these these big images with Dolby 5 or 7.1 surround sound, really making you internalize this idea that at any moment, a giant rock from nowhere that you can't see coming could just bang, end everything for you. You know what I mean? And it feeds into the same idea as nuclear bombs. Most people, I
Yeah.
mean,
So
we're not very different in age, Gino. You and I have grown up in a time watching movies like Terminator 2 and all of the other movies that include nuclear bombs as well. This idea that there could be a nuclear, a nuclear war, everything could be destroyed suddenly, and it becomes a part of your overall sort of existential outlook that, hey, this could all end at any minute. You wouldn't even have a warning that it's coming.
that's right. Yeah. So as I said, you got to turn your conspiracy theory mind on for that sort of stuff. So yeah, and they're connected. They're both, and if they're both hoaxes, like you, I know you're. I don't know whether you definitely believe that nukes are a fake or you're just a skeptic about it. But if you're someone that believes that, then yeah, you could also definitely put that in the same category. They could have, easily. I'm not saying they could have easily, but that could be something you want to explore. That maybe the elites out there, whoever they were 100 years ago, planned that one and gradually built into it as time goes on with the space and da da da, to Hollywood movies in the 80s and 90s. With oh, hang on, well, Terminator, yeah, no, Terminator 2 was a nuke, but Armageddon was definitely a meteorite hitting towards Earth, and Deep Impact was another one with Morgan Freeman. And these are big action blockbuster movies that make a lot of money that get into hundreds of millions of people's brains. Those images go into the brains, and it's just like it programs everyone. And your conspiracy theory mind could actually come to that conclusion that it could actually just be one giant hoax just to fucking keep us in fear, keep us consuming, and blah 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 blah. But if you want to turn off your conspiracy theory mind and get a little bit more, I want to try and get a bit more realistic, because it's a bit far fetched. There's a lot of teams of scientists out there all over the place studying these things and studying the rocks, and you know what I mean? So it's a bit hard to get your head around that one. I mean, they'd all have to be in on it, or either that, or they're just somehow fooled into their superiors. They're all got a boss that knows about it. So up the triangle, there's only a small group of people that control the tens of thousands of archaeologists and meteorologists or whatever the profession is. And they're just going along with it because they're ignorant and they don't know. They're being told that piece of matter is this, and the way the formation there is definitely due to the direction of the impact and blah blah blah. So you've always got to look at it both sides. You can't just jump into things and get too carried away. So yeah. But anyway, I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, okay then. Well, let's run through this one with the meteorites, like who came up with the idea, whatever. Going back to this Berenger character, and hold on, let me see if I can screen share this. Again, I prefer that people don't sit and listen to my podcast. I think it's a much smarter idea to download them, rip them to mp3, and just go for a walk. But for those who are watching this live or on delay, let's go through this. Daniel Berenger was a geologist best known as the first person to prove the existence of an impact crater on Earth, the Meteor Crater in Arizona. The site has been renamed the Berenger Crater in his honor, although this name is mainly used in the scientific community. Scroll down. In 1906, this is just over 100 years ago, guys, Berenger and his partner, the mathematician and physicist Benjamin C. Tillman, presented their first papers to the U.S. Geological Survey, outlining the evidence in support of the impact theory. It was just a theory back then. The papers were published in the Proceedings of the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia. The mining of the crater continued until 1929 without ever finding the 10 million ton meteorite that Berenger assumed must be hidden. Remember, this is science, okay? This is science. 10 million meteorite that Berenger assumed must be hidden. Yada, yada, yada. Berenger died of a heart attack in 1929, shortly after reading the very persuasive arguments that no iron was to be found in the meteorite crater, whatever. Anyway, by the time of his death, Berenger had convinced most of the scientific community that his impact theory was correct. The theory has been further confirmed with new evidence since then, most notably by Eugene Shoemaker during the 1960s. So just recapping that, this guy, Daniel Barringer, was a geologist who was best known as the first person to prove the existence of an impact crater, and that was at the Meteor Crater in Arizona. He died after convincing people that his theory was correct, even though he never found any proof for it. But we're told his theory was confirmed by this guy named Eugene Shoemaker in the 1960s. Well, let's take a look at this guy, Eugene Merle Shoemaker, an American geologist and one of the founders of the field of planetary science. You know, this astrophysics nonsense that it gets taught at universities and the planetary science. Well, this guy was one of the guys who founded that. And again, if you're our age, Gino, or people younger than us, you've grown up in a time where people tell us that they know what's happening on these other planets. And you're just like, oh, well, of course they know. Like, well, you know. But it's only even been a so-called science for like 50 years. It's a relatively new thing, okay? And once upon a time, people admitted that it was theoretical. But anyway, carry on. And what do we learn about this guy? Shoemaker helped pioneer the field of astrogeology by founding the Astrogeology Research Program in 1961. He was prominently involved in the lunar ranger missions to the moon, which showed the moon was covered with a wide size range of impact craters, also involved in the training of the American astronauts. He was himself a candidate for the Apollo moon flight, yada, yada. He was a CBS News television commentator on the early Apollo missions, especially Apollo 8 and Apollo 11, 11 being the first one to go to the moon, supposedly, appearing with Walter Cronkite during live coverage of those flights. So let's put this in perspective. Once again, this guy, first guy to prove that the craters on Earth are from impacts with, you know, asteroids or meteors or whatever. He's the first one to prove it, but he never did prove it. But he convinced people he was right. This guy, Eugene Shoemaker, well, he proved it was real back in the 1960s. He's the same guy who was involved on CBS coverage of the moon landings. Now, no sane person still believes that moon landings are real. So then just start peeling back the layers of the onion here. Where does the fakery end? And this guy and their theories of impact craters begin.
John, are you supposed to be screen sharing right now?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the screen on my end.
Well, look, it doesn't really matter because, like I said, I prefer most people listen to this. But I've just given you the summary there, Gino. That this theory of craters being caused by impacts, it's only 100 years old. The guy who is credited with finding the first one on Earth, he never proved it. He claimed there was a fucking 10,000 or 10 million ton meteorite to be found. They never found it. It doesn't exist. It's not there. But somehow we're told that the whole theory was still proven. It was proven by this Shoemaker guy, the same Shoemaker who supposedly was a candidate to be on Apollo 11, trained the Apollo 11 astronauts, and was there for the live coverage of Apollo 11 on CBS News. Can you see what I'm saying here? You don't have to look far to realize just how much fakery is involved in all of the stories that we're given. See what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, well, I wish I was watching the screen share there because that would have been a bit better. But yeah, I didn't know that. So you've basically just told the whole story up to the point where it gets involved with the Apollo moon landings, and that's one conspiracy theory that I've been up and down over the years, but at the moment I'm certainly swaying definitely towards it being a hoax. I'd have to give myself a scale, like I'm probably 99% certain that you never be 100. As in, I'm never 100% on anything. But yeah, so therefore, if it leads up to the story, this character going all the way up to having to do with the moon landings, yeah, it's definitely suspicious. It's still not 100%. Just because it's tampered and it's got something to do with the moon landings still doesn't mean. There's quite a few. There's obviously you look up on Wikipedia. There's many different craters around the planet. If they weren't meteorites hitting, then what caused them? Then I find that interesting. If the Earth is flat, then what the fuck are they? Is these questions I like to pose. Um, if they look like just sort of holes. So if it was a giant rock that smashed in, then where is the remnants of that giant rock? That all it is a hole now. So shouldn't there be like a mound? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm just trying to use my common sense here. I don't know if that made any sense. But
Yeah,
shouldn't there
no,
be like
no.
a
Well, so,
mound?
so we'll get to the shape of these alleged craters. Let me show you the top four images that are given on Wikipedia of impact craters. Because again, we're told there's not just these craters on Earth; they're all over the solar system. So here's the first photo, painting, whatever. Now, to me, this is clearly fake. I don't even know which. I mean, this is meant to be Lapidus, as seen by the Cassini probe. Okay, that's clearly fake. I don't need to explain that to anyone. This one is of uh, a crater on Mars, supposedly. Again, please, I shouldn't have to explain this to anyone. Now, the Barron crater, this is the one named after Old Mate, who we were just talking about. This is supposedly. I mean, look at that, Gino. Look at that. So for the crater to be caused like that by an asteroid, it would have to land flush, like at 90 degrees. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
problem. But the second problem is Barringer was claiming that if you dug deep enough, you'd find a giant meteorite sort of that had implanted itself in the earth. But you can't find that. It's not true at all. Do you see what I'm saying? And then you've got this one, the Tycho crater on Moon. Same problem. You know what I mean? It's just they're showing us these images and they're telling us this is what caused it, and we just believe it. But the moment you say, hold on a second, is that really what I'm being told? Very quickly you realize the whole story is baloney, and it's a story that they first introduced 100 years ago, supposedly, and they've just been building and building, and now children are taught this was caused by a giant rock hitting this mass, this supposed body out in space, but there's just no evidence for it. It's incredible when you think about it, Gino. And I hadn't thought about it. Hadn't thought about the story of craters until you brought it up. And that's the funny thing too, is once you start realizing how much fakery is out there, as soon as you look into something, you can see the problems because you're no longer just assuming that it's true. You're just assuming that it's a story that you have to investigate. Look at this. This is a laboratory, impersonation of a simulation of an impact. It's just a simulation. There's no evidence of it. I mean, look at all this crap. These photos are clearly fake. They're from, probes that are sent out into space. I mean, it's just ridiculous, man. So yeah, man, I'm glad you brought that up.
John, I have to agree with you on that one actually, because given the way gravity's supposed to work, is that I mean, some craters could, if it's got enough momentum, I suppose, could hit straight onto it. But sometimes you get craters, or whatever it is, large bits of matter that's flying through space. Some of them you'd think, some of them every now and again would sort of just miss the planet, but curl around and get caught in its gravitational pull. You know how it does that, and then slowly spin around and then unless it's in perpetual orbit like the moon does. Otherwise, eventually it'll spiral down and hit, and if it does it that way, then you would assume that it would hit on a fair angle. Like I don't want to talk about movies here, but like just like you see in, I think, like I remember seeing Transformers. When the Transformers come down and they all hit sort of sideways, and the impact sort of like it looks like that. But all these impact craters, they're perfectly circular, like they've all seemed to hit straight on, which I find a bit weird.
Yeah, it's silly, man. And look, it leads me to another one. I know that we're running out of time here, but just a quick one. Don't you think it's amazing? Look, okay then. Let me ask you: when you were in primary school, what were you taught about fossil fuels?
Oh fuck! I was in primary school in 1991 and 92 was the last year. It's a long time ago, John. I don't remember, and I don't think they even told us about fossil fuels back then.
Dude, I specifically remember being taught that fossil fuels, two main things about them. One, that the oil came from dinosaur leftovers, and two, that we were going to run out of them. You know what I mean? Like it was a limited, finite resource, and that eventually we're going to run out of fuel. Now, isn't it amazing that people are paying $1, $2 a liter for this liquid that comes straight from the earth, they're told that it's a finite resource, we're running out of it, that's why the prices continually go up. And people just believe it. No, the average person has never questioned whether or not we're running out of oil. They just accept it. But if you ask them, hey, you know how volcanoes have magma that come out of them? You know, lava, as we call it. Is the world running out of lava? What are they going to say?
I don't know. That's another interesting. That's an interesting one. That too.
Like seriously, like is the Earth, have we reached? I mean, for a lot of conspiracy type people, one of the first things they look into is peak oil. Like there's going to be this crash coming soon. You know what I mean? They're not telling us, but actually they're running out of oil, and soon we're going to hit a point where the price just goes up exponentially, and we're all going to be stuffed. So a lot of conspiracy type people get into the peak oil belief, but then you ask them, okay, you believe we're running out of oil? That's fine. Where do you think the oil comes from? Well, they're probably going to tell you that it's coming from wells, underneath the surface that are full of oil that just got there from dinosaur remains or whatever. You don't even need to realize that dinosaurs are fake to realize there's a problem with their story. They've got no evidence that the oil comes from any breakdown of whether it's dinosaurs or anything. They don't know what the hell the oil is or where it comes from. All they know is they pay $1, $2, they put it in their car, they go to work. They've got no way of verifying any of this, but they pay the $2 and it's easy to justify because, hey, we're running out of it. Can you see what I'm trying to say to you here?
Yeah. Well, they don't necessarily need it oil for the petrol that you pay for your car. It's used for that. I don't need to tell you that. It's used for millions of things, like plastics and for all kinds of products. The oil price has been going down a shitload the past 8 months. Actually, it's like gone down to like a. But I know what you mean. Overall, the trend is up. Like it goes up and up and down. But the trend over the past 50 years, however long, 100 years, it goes up. But everything, it's the same with anything and everything. Everything goes up gradually, goes up and down a little bit, and then but eventually it goes up. Just like with global warming, the temperature is gradually going up over time. I'm only kidding with that last one, by the way. I just thought I'd shit you.
Yeah, I never know with you sometimes, dude. But I'm not just talking about it. Like even if you're only paying 90 cents a liter, you're not only paying 90 cents a liter. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not a small amount to pay for a liquid that comes directly from the earth. Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you? It comes directly from the earth. And I put to you that most people, they pay it, they don't like how much they're paying, but hey, it's a limited, finite resource. That's what you've got to pay. The vast majority of people just accept they've got to pay that. Is it possible that the earth actually does regenerate the oil? Is that possible? And if the answer is no, that's impossible, there's no way the earth could regenerate it, okay, fine. Does the earth regenerate magma? It's a simple question. And you try this. I mean, if you actually want to try and have a serious conversation with a regular sleeper, be it friend or family at a party or at a Christmas or an Easter gathering or whatever, you want to hit them with flat earth? Well, that's just forget about it. How about you try something that's just a bit more simple? Like just explain to them you genuinely don't understand how it works. How can oil be finite but magma infinite? Just ask them that. And the great one about that one is I don't have the answers there. I don't think that they can have one being infinite and the other being finite. Are they both finite? Are they both infinite? I don't know. That's the whole point, though. The problem is we just don't know. There's so much that we just take for granted because we were trained from a young age. Hey, listen, we're running out of oil. It's going to cost you $1, $2 a litre. Your parents are paying $2 a litre just to get you to school today, whatever. But it's finite. It comes from dinosaurs, so you're lucky to have any. Really, people in 50 years won't have any because we'll have used it all. That's what's being trained into young people's minds today at school. Gino, it's that simple.
Yeah, I don't remember it being coming from dinosaurs. I'll have to double check that fact, but anyway, you're like what was I going to say? I'd like to challenge you on that because you keep talking about I'm allowed to challenge you because we're mates and it's all fun and stuff. So I'm going to challenge you a little bit here. I mean, you say stuff like talking about flat Earth might be a bit damaging and stuff, but and you're not obviously on that side. And you haven't really said publicly what side you are on that one, but you're definitely saying that you're convinced that dinosaurs are a hoax, and I don't think you should be. I'm not sure if you're saying that people should be saying that though. I don't think you are. That people should just be willy-nilly saying that in public, because that would also be just as bad as saying the Earth is flat. Wouldn't you agree?
Hold on a second. I was just trying to read an article there. Put that one to me again.
Oh, I don't know where to start again. Look, I was just sort of saying, like, because we're mates, and I'm going to challenge you here. I'm sure you can handle it.
Yeah.
Yes, you were saying stuff like, bring up flat Earth might be a bit too full on, but I would say that bringing up that dinosaurs are a hoax is also pretty damn full on, and that's something that you're definitely with flat Earth. You're not on board with that, and you haven't really publicly said where you are, what shape the planet is. I'm not sure if you will at some stage, but you're definitely going. You've said it many times about the dinosaurs, so. You're not saying that it would be appropriate for random people to just start saying that the dinosaurs are a hoax, are you? Or
Oh, good question. No. Okay, so with the example of the oil and where does it come from, that you can ask that as a genuine question. How do we know that we're running out of it? And whatever answer they give you, ask them if the same thing applies to lava, to magma for the volcanoes. They won't be able to answer it. Okay. So, and that one's a lot less controversial than flat Earth, because flat Earth has been programmed into people as just about the most controversial thing you can even look at, let alone believe, right? But if you want to get along with people, then you wouldn't bring up any of this stuff at all. If you want to get along with people, you just agree with the nonsense they say, let them talk about themselves, and say nothing that's in any way controversial, and you'll make the whole lunch, the whole Easter lunch, a lot more bearable for just about everyone in the room, because when you start bringing up the real truths.
Sorry, John.
Yeah,
like
my advice to people.
There you go.
Yeah, sorry, mate. We keep talking over each other. But yeah, with the dinosaurs being fake thing, look, man, I'm out there. My face is out there. You've met me. I'm out there. I'm saying dinosaurs are fake as fuck. I'm happy to cop what comes with that. And I'm prepared for that. And to some extent, I already do feel the effects of that. There are people who I met way before I started learning about any of this, and I still hang out with them to play poker or have a beer or whatever. And it's just not as fun as it used to be now, because a couple of them, they're right. I'll give you an example. There's a couple of them, really nice people, but they've been at university for years. They love, they're academics now and what have you. And so this is very much their religion. The fact that someone like me has been to their university, doesn't believe their silly stories about living on a giant spinning ball, dinosaurs, evolution, the rest of it, they can't handle it. They can't, because they know me. They know me well enough to know that I'm not the typical TV crazy person. So the idea that I wouldn't just believe what they believe, it's too much for them. So it's difficult to go out and have a beer or play poker and these topics not come up. But it's not me bringing them up a lot of times. It's them. Like if I had my time again, I never would have brought any of this up with them. But at the time, I was genuinely inquisitive. I wanted to get other people's perspectives. I'm like, hey, these guys aren't on YouTube. These guys are in the universities. What are their thoughts on these topics? Maybe they have got a good explanation for this stuff. Turns out they don't. Turns out they're indoctrinated. But now that they know that I no longer believe in their doctrine, this shit always comes up. And I don't want to talk to them about it. Like, what's the point? I've told them why I don't believe what they believe. I've told them there's no evidence for it. I've told them I don't care what they believe. And I'd prefer to just, talk about the footy, have a beer, talk about life, work, whatever. I don't care. Like, I don't want to talk about it with them. So I've felt the consequences myself, and I feel like I'm better at dealing with people's, how do I say, I'm better at not trying to piss people off when there's no need for it than most people. Do you know what I mean? I would say probably. So a lot of these people who are out there, they don't have as much nous or tact or diplomacy when it comes to just dealing with people. They're going to get themselves in a lot of trouble, because they're going to bring up topics that are just too controversial, and they're not going to know how to respond when people start having the natural programmed emotional reaction to what they're saying. Do you get what I'm trying to say to you here, Gino?
Yeah, definitely, totally agree with you, and I'm glad to hear you say that too. Just to clarify what I was just thinking for a second, because I want like our friends over at whatever they're called, potatoes and hot potatoes, and so I don't know if I remember them saying it, but I don't know, they somewhat encourage people to spread awareness. I think David Weiss has said it, and and that's not good. I don't want to be anyone like that to encourage anyone to talk about these topics that we've discussed tonight, because it'll make you seem like a freaking idiot. So just, be careful on that front is basically what I want to. But it's good that we can get, you and I can get on this little Google Hangout, and we have a bit of an audience. If they want to listen, it's up to them, and then get entertained in sort of any sort of way. And we can get this stuff off our chest, and then maybe we can learn a few things, or we can slowly try to figure out what the hell's going on in the world. Maybe. Don't think we'll ever will, but, if we get sort of closer to it, the closer the better. You know what I mean? We'll never get there, I don't think. But yeah, look, with the dinosaur hoax, I really like to challenge you on that one at some point. We're running out of time tonight, though, John, because it's getting late. But I do want to just sort of touch on our friend, our old, one of my old heroes back in the day, Bill Hicks. I'm not sure if you're still a fan of him, but he had a brilliant comedy bit. Which I remember hearing, because he was quite anti-Christian and stuff, so he used to always make fun of Christians all the time. I don't know if you remember. And one of his bit was, how do you explain the dinosaur fossils? And he'd always tell a joke about how the Christians would respond to that. I don't know if you remember this joke of his, but he'd be like, well, God put them there to test our faith. And he's like, oh, all right, so he's a prankster god. So he's running around and he's like, he's putting the bones out there and tricking people, So that's something I want to pose to you, John, before we wrap things up tonight, because you seem pretty dead set that they're a hoax. So how do you explain that part of things? Like, there's obviously dinosaur bones being discovered, so maybe you can tell the listeners out there, clear that one there up, maybe make sense of that one.
All right, then. So a couple of things. Firstly, I've said before a few times that Bill Hicks used to be a hero of mine. I've done some stand-up comedy on the local scene in Brisbane, like the open mic night stuff. And Bill Hicks was an inspiration for me, man. I'll never forget, there's a documentary about Bill Hicks called American, something like this, Bill Hicks, the American, or the American Bill Hicks, or something, right? And it's filmed in a really cool way. So it's kind of colorful and moody, and one day I was on the Herbs watching that one, and it just sort of stuck with me. I was like, man, I need to get up and do some stand-up comedy. So I did. I was about 24 or 25, went around, did a few sets, and Bill Hicks was an inspiration for me. So I used to really look up to him, and now I look back and I think, man, he's so much part of the programming agenda, whether he was working for the other side intentionally or not. And you just gave a classic example, like his because the way he tells a joke is like he's pretending that he's got, is like, ooh, I'm a prankster god, like, it's very funny. I used to believe in that crap. But it's assuming that there are these dinosaur fossils. So my question for you, Gino, is these dinosaur fossils that you're talking about, which ones, where are they?
I haven't personally, I've never personally found a dinosaur fossil, and if I were to find one, I wouldn't be qualified or skilled enough to be able to determine that it is one. There's two things though. There has to be a little bit of faith in certain things, a little bit. You got to get realistic and logical here. There'd be tens of thousands of, or hundreds of thousands of teams, and not teams, but people, and probably maybe hundreds and hundreds of different teams all around the world that work on this as a job. So it's a bit far-fetched. All of them have to be in on it, or they're all being tricked and fooled somehow. It's just difficult. So there's that. And secondly, I've got a mate who I've told you about, actually. He's a big conspiracy theorist guy. He's one of the guys that woke me up, if you want to call it being woken up. Back, around 9/11 time, around that time, when I was only about 20 years old and he was about late 20s. I'm still in touch with him to this day, and I talked to him. I actually asked him last time I hung out with him about the flat Earth thing, and he's, because he's a big conspiracy theory guy. He thinks all these, conspiracies and stuff. But when it comes to flat Earth, he's not on board with that. He thinks it's not flat. But I also discussed with him about dinosaurs, and so this is the only thing I can sort of add to this, John, because I don't really know myself, because I haven't seen dinosaur fossils or found them myself. And I don't actually know any archaeologists. Unlike with the flat Earth, I knew pilots that could sort of help me with some info. With the dinosaurs, I don't know any archaeologists. So if I knew some top-notch, trustworthy archaeologists, ones that are friends of the family that you can trust, I don't know them, so I can't say that. But my mate, who I was just referring to, he's traveled the world, I don't know, over and over. He's seen like so many different countries, and he's told me that he's known places where he's known people where they go, and there's heaps of dinosaur fossils. You can find them, and he knows somewhere that he could go and find them himself. He hasn't done that though. He didn't say he did, but he said he knows places where you can get them. Anyway, so I said to him, okay, so they're just what they tell us about dinosaurs. The official story is accurate then. Well, he didn't say yes to that because he's a conspiracy theory guy. This guy, he's old school though. So there's always something not quite right about everything. His theory was basically that that they're not, because he doesn't believe in carbon dating. He thinks the carbon dating thing is a lie and whatever. So therefore, he believes that what they are finding are some sort of bones, but they've all been sort of tricked as to what they are. What they put them together incorrectly. What they really were no, they weren't. He believes they were dragons, basically, but not fire-breathing dragons that are mythical, but they were these dragon-like creatures that existed about maybe 20,000 years ago, not 60 million years ago. He believes they were maybe 10 to 20,000 years ago. If you go and if you study ancient ancient cultures and stuff, where they always seem to look at dragons and reptiles and stuff, big reptiles. He reckons that that's possibly what they could be, and I found that really interesting and fascinating and somewhat plausible. That's everything I've got to add to that, John. So to answer your question.
All right, then. So let me show you a few things then. You're talking about dinosaurs, and like you said that you're not qualified to determine what they are. Well, you tell me, Gino, who is qualified to tell you that this bone that they're looking at is 66 million years old, right? Who's qualified to tell you that? And then as for the story of dinosaurs, you and I, we grew up, we watched The Land Before Time or Jurassic Park or Way Back or one of these shows. So we've got the idea of Tyrannosaurus implanted in our mind. We've literally been programmed to believe in them. But what is the actual story? Most people don't know the story with dinosaurs, right? So why don't we go through it, right? This is, again, our friends at Zoopedia. I'm on the page Tyrannosaurus, skeleton restoration of the first dinosaur, the first Tyrannosaurus rex find. Now, what do you notice there? This is no longer the official story. The official story is that Tyrannosaurus rex did not walk with its tail dragging behind. Now, they had to have that official story because their evidence of the Tyrannosaurus rex foot fossils and other dinosaur foot fossils doesn't have the tail dragging behind. So they can't say that it walked with a tail. They have to say that it walked with a slightly more horizontal posture, right? So their own story has changed despite them using reconstructions. Go back to Tyrannosaurus rex. This is the official story here from earliest finds. Quote, teeth from what is now documented as a Tyrannosaurus rex were found in 1874 by Arthur Lakes near Golden, Colorado. All right, 1874. That's less than 150 years ago, man. These bones are meant to be 66 million years old, but they were getting discovered 150 years ago. How is that not a little bit suspect, right? Barnum Brown, he was part of the Bone Wars. I saw Jordan Rains in the live chat was talking about the Bone Wars. Yeah, if you don't know what the Bone Wars are, look into it. It's a fucking joke, all right? Barnum Brown was part of that. So yeah, discovered 150 years ago. But what was the biggest, what's the most well-known version of the Tyrannosaurus rex? Well, it was discovered by Sue Hendrickson, and it was named after her. Hendrickson is best known for her discovery of the remains of the Tyrannosaurus rex in South Dakota on August 12, 1990. Just remember that, 1990. Her discovery was the largest specimen of a T-Rex found and one of the most complete skeletons. The skeleton is now known as Sue in honor of her discovery. So anyway, what's the story here? How did you find it? Well, on August 12, while examining a cliffside In South Dakota, with a team from the Black Hills Institute, she discovered an important Tyrannosaurus rex specimen, the largest, most complete, and best preserved T Rex ever found. So, the story here is that the biggest T Rex ever found, the most complete one, was found just a couple of years before Jurassic Park, which many of us grew up on. And where did you find the bones that were 66 plus million years old? Just coming out of a cliff face. Now, Gino, putting aside whether or not you think dinosaurs are real, if everything that I just read out, you found out is the official story, would you have some question marks over it?
That's an interesting point. Yeah, oh look, I'm not saying I'm dismissing it completely, John. I'm open minded to. You know me, I'm open minded to a lot of things, So I just haven't really looked into it. It's another very far fetched conspiracy, and I believe you haven't spent much time yet. It's not you haven't obviously done it on purpose. You've obviously been busy and you're trying to get through your other topics and stuff, but you haven't really done much presentation of it. You haven't really shown much evidence of it. But your reasoning behind it. Because you've made the statement quite a lot without actually showing stuff first. I mean, maybe it would have been better if you had shown some really good stuff first and then start saying it. I don't know. Maybe you did the other way around. Tonight, you've almost probably done shown the most bit of info since you've been making videos the past 3-6 months. You just started talking about dinosaur hoax. You should keep making more of them. Like what you said then was pretty interesting. I do find that because I came out. I'm pretty sure I came out in 1993 Jurassic Park. So I mean the script would have been probably written in 91, 92. And no, well, 91. Well, who knows when the script was written actually? But
dude, Jurassic Park was originally a Michael Crichton. I'm pretty sure it was a Michael Crichton book, wasn't it? Jurassic Park. I'm pretty sure it was written by one of those huge authors. Let's have a look. Let's find out. Yeah, the novel by Michael Crichton was released in 1990, the same year as that find of Sue, and the dinosaur was named after her. And when you think of Jurassic Park, what do you think of? Right?
Yeah, but you need to ask you this question though, John. Can the movie still have happened almost pretty much the same way if the old version of the T-Rex with a tail dragging on the ground, would it have still been able to make the movie the same way, or would the movie require it for the upgraded T-Rex, for the tail to be off the ground, more agile? Do you know what I mean?
But I get what you're saying, and I'm not sure when they changed their story from the sliding tail to the upright tail. But look at this poster for Jurassic Park. Look, there it is, your big fucking T-Rex, man. T-Rex got big in 1990. They found their largest ever specimen, and they released the novel Jurassic Park the same year. A few years later, and you've got the Steven Spielberg movie. And you think of the kind of movies that Spielberg's been involved in. Like, do you think this is all just a coincidence? Like how absurd does it have to get? And I've told you, like I've just read out to you the official story of where the biggest T-Rex ever came from. Can't you see how suspicious it is that it's been around for 66 million years and an amateur paleontologist just happens to find it hanging out of a cliff face? Isn't that a little bit suspicious to you, Gino?
I agree with you. It is a little bit suspicious, but not enough. The evidence isn't hard. Like, it isn't strong enough still for me to just go, yeah, definitely, it's all a hoax, But it is something that's intriguing. It could get one thinking, So it could actually have been. It could have just been a decision made at one point saying, "Oh, great, this would make a great movie idea," and it may not have been all planned and designed. It might have just been all how it happened. So it's hard to say, really. I need more evidence.
Is it fair to say that with me and you're at the point where an official story is still probably true until it's debunked, whereas with me, an official story is probably bullshit until it's proven true. That's basically we're coming from two different perspectives here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I need to be convinced more. I don't want to like launch into or jump into something that I'm not certain of, or something that I can never even really 100% prove anyway. Whereas you're quite happy to just go, yep, I'm convinced already. Because of so many other weird shit that I've looked into the past however long. Therefore, this has to be, you know what I mean. So you're more on that mindset, whereas I'm more like, yeah, this is very
Yeah, but, yeah,
suspicious.
but yeah, but what am I convinced of? You're saying that I'm very easily convinced. What am I convinced of here? I've read out to you the official story. I'm convinced that official story is suspect as like that's just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous official story. Okay. Now, is it possible that giant lizard birds roamed the earth 66 million years ago? Sure, anything's possible. But if you take the time to look at their evidence that it's true, you'll see that their evidence is utter shite. And when you realize that, you'll have to ask yourself, why do you still believe these dinosaurs probably existed? The main answer is because of programming, because we watched movies like Jurassic Park, we internalized it, we believed it. That's why. That's a simple reason why. It's not because of evidence, it's not because of science, not because of real science, not because of any research that we've done. It is, well, this is what I was raised to believe. And until John LeBon does a 90-minute documentary exposing the whole thing, then I'm going to believe it's probably real. Like the burden of proof is on the people saying that this is all a lie, rather than putting the burden of proof on the people who are telling you that the earth used to be inhabited by giant lizard birds with tiny little hands and gigantic legs and heads who are completely unbalanced and make no physiological sense. You're going to assume that's probably true until someone debunks it. It's insane, man.
Oh, I'm not saying the burden of proof is on you or the burden of proof is on someone else or whatever it is. All I'm saying, John, is that I don't want to be too convinced on anything straight away. I haven't done, and I also, to be honest, haven't done much research on it, to be honest. But some of it, I mean, it's growing on me. It is growing on me, but I don't really want to, say that I'm convinced on it. That's all. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's coming to 2 hours. It is time for bed. It's past midnight here and it's past 1 a.m. your time. So we're going to have to wrap the show up soon. But you can see how this is all interrelated, can't you? You've got the
Yeah,
craters.
definitely. No,
The
it's definitely
craters.
it's sorry, John. Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. It's early days for me though. Like, you need to give me more time to research it. And before we go, though, we did want to discuss Trump and this whole left wing, right wing sort of like paradigm, whatever you call it, the divide and conquer topic. But I think we're going to have to run out of time on that one, aren't we?
I mean, we can save that for next one. We can do this again. We can reconvene. But if you want to just spend 5 minutes just getting that off your chest, man, like I can shut up and just give you the floor for a bit if you want.
Yeah, well, yeah. Look, it's really intriguing. They've really gone crazy on this one, haven't they? Like, it really is. It does really come across as one giant show. What's going on over there. It's just absolutely. And I love doing little social experiments, and I encourage other. Oh, actually, no, I shouldn't encourage people to do this. You should leave it up to nutty people like me to do it, and people with a bit of balls. But like, people know me because they know that I can joke around. But like, just in social gatherings, just sort of whether it's at work or just with your friends or whatever, or just people out in a bar somewhere, just start saying stuff like positive stuff about Donald Trump and say, "Oh fuck, I really hope Donald Trump gets in, man. He's gonna really fix up America. What he's gonna do. He's gonna do this. And then just see the reaction from people. It's quite interesting. You know what I mean? People just
So,
fucking lose their shit.
because even people in Australia are being programmed to hate Trump, aren't they? Like even here, it's happening.
Oh, like you'd not believe. There's nowhere. The only way you might see where it is, and that show's gone. Like if you maybe read the Bolt report, I don't know where he's got. I think still an article. There's a couple of right wing people that say a couple of right things about him, but the Bolt report program that used to be on Channel 10, they've got Axe now. You might have seen a good maybe 1 hour a week of him talking about him in his show. He might have probably spent 20 minutes talking about him, defending him. Other than that, the rest would just completely just let him have it, and it doesn't matter what you're watching. But yeah, anyway, what were we gonna say?
I know. I mean, obviously, I don't watch the news anymore, and I used to still check the newspapers, like the websites, a couple of times a day, just to see what was on the news. These days, I don't. I don't. We had a council election in Brisbane yesterday. I didn't even know who was running. You know what I mean? I didn't vote. I don't even know who's running. I got no idea what's going on politically now. I don't follow it. It's a circus to me, right? But then I was hanging out with somebody I know recently, and Donald Trump came up, and we watched this YouTube of Stephen Colbert, having a go at Donald Trump, and the whole thing was just insane. And I said to this person, what do you think of Trump? And sure enough, racist and old white man, and da-da-da. And I was like, man, this programming, and I can see Twitwit in the live chat is saying, it's always interesting listening to foreigners dissecting US politics. You have to understand, for people in Australia who are tuned into the news, which I still think is most people over the age of 40 are still pretty tuned into the news, and even young people are as well. The US presidential election every 4 years is a huge part of our news here, and people are getting programmed about Trump. And because I've just been completely zoned out from it for the last few months, I didn't realize until just this weekend that people here are being programmed to hate Trump. And it sounds, Gino, like you've been seeing this firsthand for a while.
Yeah, from my perspective and your perspective, we know that it's the false two-party paradigm, as you call it. We don't know, but we've got a fair idea that it's just all one giant show, and the real power is somewhere else, and it's just an illusion to keep us thinking that we've got a choice. You and I clued on that a long time ago. You're 100% sure. Again, I'm never 100% sure, but that's one thing that I'm nearly 100% certain on. And so whenever you see this sort of stuff happening, whether it's in Britain with their two-party and America with the Republicans and the Democrats, and here you got Labor and Liberal. Whenever you sort of see this, you kind of straight away you get this gut feeling. You feel it as well. You just go, this is all just a show. Like who gives a shit? Why are we arguing over the two to choose from? What's going on? But you see, like, the majority of people, and surprisingly, you do meet a few people that are clued on it as well. You might hear someone say, "Oh, it's all a load of shit." Yeah, it's all, and you go, "Oh, great." There's another person that sees it, and you might hear someone say, "Oh, look, I really want to vote Liberal," which is like America's equivalent of Democrats. And you go, you do realize it doesn't really matter. Like, they're both, and you go, and they might admit, yeah, I understand, but at least it's the lesser of two evils. And you go, yeah, but you're still, wasting your time. And they go, yeah, maybe I am, and they still, so you got. It's hard to say, percentage-wise, because I haven't looked into the statistics. And even if you were to look into the statistics of what people believe, you wouldn't even know how to trust those statistics. But anyway, definitely a majority take it all seriously. And then, you just think, what the fuck? You can't see it by now? It's crazy. And this Trump thing is like really. And just for the record, if anyone's listening, I don't know if there's anyone listening to me right now. When I said, as a social experiment, I get up and start saying positive things about Trump. I'm not saying that I believe that, guys. I'm just saying it as a piss take, because I wanted to see what people's reactions are. And it's full on. Like look, there might be the odd person that doesn't mind Trump, or doesn't have an opinion, or no, fuck the ones that don't have an opinion. Let's talk about the ones that actually have an opinion and like Trump. Those people would be a minority, and they would keep their fucking mouth shut. They wouldn't voice it. They'd sit there, and they wouldn't agree with me blurting out what I'm saying. And then you got the majority of others that just get really huffy and puffy about it. They all get shocked, and they say, they want to start an argument with me over it, and not really a fight, but it's just it's interesting. I go, what? And it's just. I haven't even spent the time looking into it, because I just know that if I did, I'm going to just confirm what I already feel about it. It's just one giant show.
Well, this guy Donald Trump used to be on a reality TV show, didn't he?
Yes, yeah, yes.
Called The Apprentice, right? But then, I get what you're saying. People are so programmed that if you just bring this topic up, they get emotional, they get aggressive, whatever. There's more to it than that. A lot of people who are concerned about mass immigration do seem to actually be supporting Trump. Like, as you know, I do follow what some people term the white nationalist sort of podcast as well. And they're seeing this problem where a lot of people who listen to their shows or follow their websites, they're still buying into the Trump nonsense because he's talking about putting up a wall and all this kind of crap. So people are starting to get behind Trump. So even people who know they're being lied to by the system, who know that bad things are being done, they can't trust their government, even they will latch on to Trump just because people need something to hope for, someone to believe in. The people who run the show, they know that. That's why they can put out a few characters every 8 years, let you buy into whichever character you want to buy into. It doesn't matter. You're going to buy into someone, and then 8 years later, you'll either have checked out of the system altogether, or you'll still be floating around wanting to buy into the next person. So now these guys are buying into Trump. Then Trump could get in, be president, take America to another war, but then they'd be like, well, look, he has taken us into another war, but, you know, he did build the wall. You know what I mean? They'll still justify it. It's crazy how people are so desperate for someone to believe in. They'll forgive all of their flaws. They'll look past all of the problems. They'll accept the system as it is, so long as their man is the one who delivers the speeches. Man, when you get your head around just how fucking hopeless and helpless most people are, how quickly they'll latch onto anyone who gives them a semblance of hope. It's look, it's a really sad thing, isn't it? It's funny, but it's sad.
Yeah, it is.
And
Anyway, John, I think we're done. Sorry, what were we going to say?
but yeah, no, we're done, man. And I think a lot of the topics that we've talked about tonight, they all tie in together. You know what I mean? I think the same problems that we see with people just, believing in Trump, same reason why people will believe in, YouTube characters who tell them what they want to hear and make them feel good. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. People are yearning for someone or something to believe in. They've been trained out of believing in themselves and their own senses, and they'll go for anything at this point, even if that means believing that dinosaurs led to the fuel that they're putting in their car for $2 a litre because, hey, they're running out of fuel. And the same comets that created these craters wiped out those dinosaurs and could wipe us out tomorrow. And in the meantime, just be happy with your lot, buy lots of shit you don't need, and get angry at anybody who challenges any of your pre-existing beliefs. So, Gino, I think you made a great debut on the show. Thank you for staying up until 1:30 Brisbane time for the debut. It was a long time coming, but I'm glad we've got it out of the way. Any final thoughts you want to leave the audience with for Impromptu Chat number 6?
Oh no, it was an honour, and thank you for having me on. That's about it, John. I've got to go to bed now because I've got to work tomorrow. But yeah, thanks for having me as one of these little chats of yours. It's good. It's good. You get this shit off your chest. You have a bit of a chat, and hopefully people out there can maybe get something out of it, or get entertained, or kill an hour or two of their time if they're absolutely bored, shitless, had nothing else better to do. So. Yeah. Anyway, John. Well, I'm going to go now. I've got to go to bed now. So good night, everyone, and John will chat soon.
Yeah, no worries, mate. Thanks for your time. And I'll just say before I wrap up, thanks everyone for tuning in. Had between 30 and 40 live listeners. I'm sorry I didn't read out more of your comments, but we did read out a few of them. And I'll put links to Gino's channel in the info box below. So if you're not already familiar with it, go and check it out. A couple of really good videos there about flat Earth experiments and what he found, and well worth your time. This is Impromptu Chat 6 on the 20th and the 21st of March. Thanks a lot to Jenna for coming out. Thanks to you guys for listening. And there'll also be instructions in the info box about how you can rip these things to mp3, so you can just listen to them on the way to work, or when you're just walking around your local town, sitting on a computer chair, watching this crap. It's no good for you. Better off listening. So check the info box. Lots of information there. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the John LeBon channel. No music to play us out with tonight. That's it. So till next time, take care of yourselves.